It is 6 p.m. on August 11th, 2022, and I'm going to call the Clackamas River Water Board of Commissioners to order. Please, would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, thank you all. Can you call the roll out, please?
Commissioner French.
Oh, I'm here.
Commissioner Garrison.
Here.
Commissioner Rubishit.
Here.
We
Okay.
are missing Commissioners Andrew and Danelle.
Yes. Yeah, Commissioners Andrew and Danelle are absent this evening. So I do want to remind everyone that we are being videotaped, so behave yourselves.
Do we need to announce that we do have a quorum?
No, we have a quorum.
Okay.
We've got 3. I will specify, I don't want to look above, since we are down 2, in order to pass anything, we all have to, it has to be unanimous. So,
Very good.
as we move along.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay, at this time, I will ask for the approval of the agenda, which means if you have any questions, and I'm gonna say specifically, like with anything on the consent agenda, you can't, that, if you want that discussed, we have to move it up as an action item. So I will accept a motion for approval of the agenda.
I motion that we approve the agenda as printed.
I second the motion.
Okay.
Commissioner French.
Yes,
Commissioner Garrison.
Yes.
Commissioner Rubishit.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
okay, at this time, public comment. Karen, do we have anyone online? Or?
No.
Nobody? Okay. Not even Kevin?
That's
No.
No, just Chris?
good to us.
Okay, so we are gonna move right to the action items. Number 1 is resolution number 01/2023, consideration of adoption of proposed changes to water rates and affirming fees and charges. And Jason, you're on the hot seat.
Good evening, Commissioners. First agenda item is for the board to consider resolution 01/2023, which is adoption of the charges for water rates and affirming fees and charges. We had a rate hearing back on July 14th, and we only had 1 written comment that was presented at that time. If you approve resolution 01/2023, it will make water rates effective September 1st of 2022 and September 1st of 2023. It's a 2-year rate plan. Originally, it was stated that the rates would be effective September 11th, but this is a board resolution as opposed to an ordinance. And so an ordinance requires 30 days after approval before implementation. So by going with a resolution, we can implement those on September 1st, and this will align with our billing cycle. It'll be much easier to implement the rates. If approved, the resolution will update the retail water rates that were previously in ordinance 01/2022. Any questions?
Okay, questions, anyone? Comments?
Motion.
Going once, going twice? Okay.
I move that the CRW board approve resolution 01/2023 and adopt water rates and affirm fees and charges.
And I second the motion.
Okay, Karen, please?
Commissioner French.
Yes.
Commissioner Garrison.
Yes.
Commissioner Rubishit.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
See, Jason, that wasn't as hard as you thought. Take a breath. Okay, second item on our action items is to consider approval of intergovernmental agency agreement with MORE, which is managing Oregon resources efficiently for resources/services sharing. Adam?
Good evening, Commissioners. This is another cooperative agreement that we were actually made aware of by the county. Some folks there in the Transportation Maintenance Department said, hey, you guys might want to take a look at this. The nice thing about this agreement, we have we're members of a couple like this. The Or Warren is one example for emergency incident resources. Also the one of Washington County, this CPAWC, CPAWC agreement, which the board approved, I think last fall, is another example. Those are much more local in general. I mean, Or Warren is statewide, but this agreement, there's just more of a base of partnering agencies. So, I think from what I understand of the agreement, the breadth of those agencies is much broader. So you have counties, you have not just water providers, I guess I would say, counties, cities, folks with a lot of resources, whether that's equipment or staff to provide certain services, other resources. It's all in the similar nature of those other agreements where, if it's a blue sky event, we just have a resource need for some reason we can't do it in-house, or we can't procure it through our normal channels. We might utilize an agreement like this, or of course in an emergency when we may have a similar need. The nice thing is there's no fee for this, no annual fee. It's administered by an employee in Marion County, I believe, who kind of does behind the scenes work. But again, just another great opportunity, I believe, to partner with other agencies if and when we would actually need those types of services.
So, okay, that's it. If we need a piece of equipment, let's say, and somebody has one, now, so then they charge us for that though?
Correct.
Okay, and then we do the same, I mean,
And
it's
like,
kind of,
yeah,
okay,
vice versa. Yeah,
Okay.
we would, like you just did with the rates and charges, we have normal rates we would put on certain things like equipment or staff time that we would bill accordingly, and other agencies as well.
and hopefully we don't ever have to use it.
Yep, it's there if the need arises.
So Adam, do you envision this being kind of like an equal back and forth? Where people would borrow our equipment as much as we would borrow their equipment, or do you see it more one way?
The nice thing is it's, if someone has a need, it's always conditioned on the loaning agency being willing to give up whatever the resource is for whatever period of time, right? So if somebody said, hey, CRW, we need to borrow a dump truck, we might have to say, well, actually, it's a real busy time of year, we just can't give it up right now, and they go to someone else. That actually applies to our other more emergency-based agreements too. History-wise, I would say we've been more on the loaning end of these types of things, and they don't happen often. The requests don't come in often, but not to say that we may not have a need sometime.
I think that's more when you're dealing with specialty type equipment.
True.
That we don't have or that we do have.
Interesting.
Exactly.
Right.
You have a question?
Yeah, good evening, Adam.
Hi, Russ.
Do we have any experience with this group?
No, this would be the first time we would actually join this agreement. The group is composed of a number of agencies that we do have, one-on-one experience with. Places like Oregon City, Clackamas County, City of Milwaukee, I believe, is on this. Local agencies that we have relationships with.
Okay, good point. Do we have any input from any of those local agencies about their interaction with this group?
Only the county, because like I said, they were the ones that let us know that this agreement existed, and they said, hey, you might.
And they suggested we join?
They suggested we join. I think they've had some success with it themselves. I don't
Thank
know
you.
if that's from a borrowing or a lending standpoint.
Thank you, Adam.
Okay, the only thing I have on this is I hesitate to sign it because it spelled my name wrong. So it can't be legal if it doesn't have my name right. Bob, isn't that right?
That's on me, and I apologize, because I believe.
Adam!
I filled that in, so. My apologies. We
Man,
can correct that.
all these years.
What do we need to pencil in a year?
So can you just strike it?
I don't know, I don't know.
I'm sure we'll work with you on this.
Okay.
We'll be fine.
I noticed that and I thought, I don't know if I can sign that or not, 'cause I mean, that kind of gets a little, okay. Any other questions or comments?
Not for me.
Well, I move the board approve the intergovernmental agreement with Moore, managing Oregon resources efficiently.
And I second the motion.
Okay, Karen, please.
Commissioner French.
Yes,
Commissioner Garrison.
Yes.
Commissioner Rivers.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. Okay, we move down to the consent. Handle yourself here, Rusty, you all right?
I'm good.
Okay, down to the consent agenda. Okay. If there's nothing. Okay, then I take a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
I second the motion.
Okay.
Commissioner French,
Yes.
Commissioner Garrison,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubishon,
Yes.
motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're moving down to number 3, which is the quarterly report, and that's Jason again.
Good evening again. We'll have our presentation pop up here in a moment.
You also have the slides in your folder as well.
That's what you got. Mhm.
So this is our fourth quarter update. It's we're halfway through our biennium, so everything's fairly easy to look at because we're at 50% of our budget. So when we're looking at numbers comparison, we'll be looking at the 50%, 50% column and where we're coming in connection with that.
New technology, I have to admit myself, I forgot.
All right, so as I said, we're in the first year. This is completion of the first year of our biennial budget, and so these numbers will be looking at where we're at in relation to halfway through our budget fiscal year. So if you look at our revenues, we're coming in strong at about 54% overall revenues, with water sales being about 55%. A lot of this relates back to very strong last summer water usage, so that really kind of bumped that number up above what we would expect it to normally be, but still staying solid at 55%. Personnel expenses, we're at 42.3% of the biennial budget. We have a number of vacancies that has kind of lended itself to keeping that number well below the 50% mark. But we've included in that, we have our VIPA contributions, all of our taxes, and employee workers' comp insurance. So all those annual numbers are in there. For general expenses, material and services, we're at 44.2%. We did have some categories that were above. I believe I mentioned these at the third quarter update, but categories that were above the 50% mark are related to credit card charges and other collection expenses. We're going to look at those pretty detailed when we go into the budget process, just to make sure that our budget's aligning with what we're actually spending. We did make some changes to our billing system, or the process that we use for billing, so that's kind of consolidated some of those costs into our online bill pay. And so hopefully we'll see a reduction in cost. That was the initial intent for that changeover, as well as making it more user-friendly, easier for customers to use. So, capital outlay, we're at 23.6%. That is capital outlay, equipment type purchases that are out of the general fund. So we're about 23.6% budget for those. Those come in big chunks. So as we buy a piece of equipment, it's usually a large dollar amount. So being at 23.6% is not unusual. We'll spend those out through the rest of the year. Other funds we look at, so looking at the SDC revenues, the biennial budget had $1,789,000 budgeted. We're at 766, so about 42%. We're at the mercy of the development. So those numbers come in when developments go in and they pay their SDC. So while we try to budget for that as a revenue item, it's it just kind of comes in when it does. Capital improvements project fund. So those are those big projects. We keep pretty close track of those. Those also come in big chunks. We're at only 14.2. Really, this year we had one big project that came through, and that was the Athens Road. So that was a big project that came through. We have other ones in the works. We are experiencing longer lead times, trying to get parts and equipment and contractors. So we'll keep chipping away at the list, but that's where we stand currently. Any questions on the fourth quarter?
So Jason, just if you could make a couple of comments on your, the capital outlay, it seems like those are purchases, correct?
Correct.
And so you're only about a quarter of the way through, halfway through the year. I mean, realistically, you could spend the rest of that money fairly easily, right?
It would be possible, yeah.
So.
We should be able to catch up as we get larger.
And you're, can we assume that you plan to catch up?
That is the plan.
Okay. The capital improvement projects seem a little more difficult to catch up. Because that's not a purchase, that's actually work, right?
Correct.
And so you're only at 14.2%. So what should the board expect is gonna happen in the next 12 months?
Yeah, so I'll jump in there a little bit and maybe it might be a team effort here. First off, on the capital outlay, the purchases, but in fairness, we are running into some supply chain issues. So for an example, one of the large capital outlay items is a large service truck. It's approximately $130,000 investment. Unfortunately, what we're running into is even though we've been ready to order that truck for a number of months, they aren't even taking orders for those trucks until October, and then they're not even letting us know if we would be able to get delivery before that. So I want to caution us on the capital outlay piece too. We're at the mercy a little bit.
That seems like an easier one because you could just tell the board that the order is pending.
Right.
And it's
then we put
for
it in
X
the next
amount of money, so those dollars, I assume you just roll over.
Yeah. So there's a
Because
couple
they're
different.
earmarked.
So there's a couple of different things there. The second piece on the capital improvements program, I think, I don't, you stepped up. Do you want to say something on that, or should I just?
I don't want to steal your thunder.
Oh,
I have
okay.
lots to say.
Yeah, no, I in my
Oh
view.
dear.
Well, yeah, I guess the caveat there is we are planning on doing kind of more of a briefing, in a work session in October, I believe, to kind of recap how the capital improvement process works, kind of some of the planning that we've done in past years, and then things to expect as we look at next half the budget this period. It's not uncommon really for projects to lag, I'll say, in any budget cycle for a number of reasons. So there's a couple of things on there, and not to get into too much detail, but probably 3 of those projects on that list they're external. There's other players involved, namely county or city involvement. And until we get some more movement in that respect, things that are out of our control, namely prioritize the county project that's lagged for whatever reason on their side, we won't see the water line portion of that come about, if that makes sense. So those are projects that possibly might slide to the next budget cycle, depending on the county or other agency schedule. Other things like Todd mentioned, we certainly are seeing the impacts of the supply chain issues right now. We were pretty fortunate on the Athens project, the one that Jason mentioned that we got done. That was probably the last one we saw where a contractor went in and said, yeah, I actually found this pipe on the shelf at a supplier, and away they went in a normal clip. The one we just did, Maple Lane, the board just awarded, we know it's a 4 to 5 month window on just getting pipe. They told us they probably won't start construction until December, around there. So we're doing everything we can. We've even started looking into some owner supplied materials to pre-order materials to spend funds on materials, then bid the project out with a contractor to install that. We're doing that on a couple of the capital projects with Bob's help to make sure we're crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's, because there's some liability there. Right, that's not our normal method. We normally bid a complete
That all
project.
makes sense, and I'm new to the board, so I'm not familiar what you guys would do in a situation like this before. But private sector, if there was kind of delays and you weren't going to get this work done, you might reach out into the future and say, we can do those projects. We're not gonna spend any more money, but we can do those projects. So let's just switch them around, because we're not gonna get to this for whatever reason. We're gonna trade next year's work, because if you have surplus work that you don't finish this year, roll over to next year. then I'm not sure you have the bandwidth to do the carryover plus all of the, you know, your aggressive, you know, work projects,
Exactly.
capital projects next year.
And that's, we're definitely considering that. We are looking at either projects that are on the list, the 12 projects on the list now, some of the ones that we wouldn't have started on for several months normally, we're looking at bumping those ahead quicker.
Yeah.
But then also having dialogue on, are there projects on the 4 to 6 year list that we can move forward sooner?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of those are similar projects, water line replacement, you know, so we're gonna see the same effects there. But there may be some, you know, that we feel we can get done quicker, at least get a design on the shelf and be ready to go, kind of that shovel-ready concept when the time comes. So yeah, appreciate the comments. Definitely a lot of things involved with that.
Right.
We're certainly looking at those.
And moving forward, the plan is as Adam mentioned, actually a couple of things. One, we're going to be talking to the board about some pre-purchase of some valves for a large project. We're dealing with water treatment plants. I think at your next meeting, and then we'll schedule a work session where we'll go into a little bit more depth as far as, you know, the process, what we're encountering, and then at that point, if we have a clear picture on maybe some things that we're going to do to substitute. So stay tuned.
Any other comments or questions?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, Jason, to follow on to Commissioner Ruchin's, one of his questions, we're ahead on revenue by quite a bit, and we have not realized expenditures expected over the last 12 months. Do we expect that to continue for the next year?
We'll have to see. It just depends on the spend rate. So it's nice that we're in a district, so those funds are gonna stay in district. So to the extent that we have additional cash resources from higher revenue or reduced expenses, those just go to pay for future expenses, whether it be projects or other type of capital items or just, you know, costs within the district, so.
But we might end up with a surplus, and you're saying that surplus carries over.
It will carry.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
Cash
thank
is
you.
in district.
Any other questions or comments?
I have one more.
Yes.
So, back to the capital projects and Todd, I mentioned it would be really nice, and I like some of the comments that Adam mentioned, and there's, I guess, a more thorough review coming up in October. But it would be really helpful to have some kind of a watch list column associated with the improvement projects. So if we know if it's a labor shortage, if it's a parts shortage, if it's engineering constraints, so that there's some visibility of what is impacting the delay. And I think that helped the board to kind of understand, you know, as we look at reprioritizing future work to supplant some of the projects that you're experiencing some short-term delays on.
Anything else?
No, I think that's a good point to give some specifics. Thank you.
Add another couple of columns to your spreadsheet, Adam. Okay, this time oh no, we don't have to worry about that. No other questions? Okay, then we're gonna move right along to the management report, Mr. Todd.
All right, good evening again, commissioners. A number of things that were in your folder that would point out, some of them we've already had a chance to look over. One's the monthly reports that we included. The only thing I really highlight in that report this go around is we do have our customer consumption graph that's on the bottom right on page 8. One thing to note on that is there is no data for 2022 because we only have one data point, and so it's a point. So next month you'll see actual trend. We did note that there was a little bit of a decrease in consumption, but yet if you look at the production report, you'll see that it'll pop up once again for July. So I will go back to the front page. You'll notice there's a lot of activities as it relates to purchase orders. And that's typical because this is the beginning of the fiscal year, so July is a busy time for us to generate purchase orders. A lot of them are blanket purchase orders, so we're setting them up with vendors that we have frequent, small purchases with, or purchases with, I should say. The other thing in your packets, so nothing more on the monthly report. Water supply looks good. So all of that is positive. Another thing in your report is the memo that's informing the board of an emergency procurement. So under the local contract review board rules, I'm required to notify you in writing of an instance where that method of procurement has been exercised. And so you have the additional detail associated with the roof project that we unfortunately found out that we needed to add to that project at a fairly significant cost. And so since we had everything exposed and opened, we needed to move quickly in order to make sure there was nothing that was going to get damaged as part of that project. So so you have the information there. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to address those. Yep.
How many square feet of roofing were involved?
I want to say like 5,000.
Pardon?
I want to say about 5,000. Maybe more than that, though.
5,000 square feet.
It's a plant.
It's
Yeah, like 50
a large,
50
it's that
squares.
whole equipment shed area in our system operations facility. So
We didn't have anybody else look at supplying sheathing.
So they had everything that they were pulling off the old material, because we're just gonna re-rough over the existing. And then that's when they discovered that there was a problem with the existing, and so this was a contractor that was on site, already mobilized. They were able to get the material quick, as opposed to going through a process to leave everything exposed while we went through a secondary.
And you think it was about 5,000 square feet?
We can double check.
I want to verify that. It's more of a guess.
Yeah, I'd like to know, but other than that, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. And yeah, so the first part of that whole process went through a competitive bid process.
Right.
And this contractor was the low bid, and frankly, even with the additional work, when you add the additional work, his bid is still very competitive compared to the other bids. So we feel pretty good about the
I've
pricing.
been in exactly the same position myself.
Sorry, not the position we wanted to be in.
I know the drill, but
Uh,
thank you.
The other thing that I want to point out is that you have your bill inserts that will go out in the monthly bills, or the bi-monthly bills that will be sent out at the end of this month. And so we're highlighting, obviously, welcoming Commissioner Rubischen to the board. Also providing some information as it relates to the low income water assistance program that the board approved us participating in with part of the county. And then also advertising a cleanup event, the Down the River cleanup event, which will be Sunday, September 11th, that we're encouraging others to participate. And then also notifying folks that our Fish on the Run Irrigation Done campaign starts off at the end of this month as well. So we're just trying to make that connection to water use and the impacts of the river, and the fact that the river at that time of year is dependent, or we'll start seeing the fish migration take place. And so just trying to connect those dots for folks. So that's the additional items in your list. And I think you also have an updated updated commissioner list, contact list for yourselves to post on your wall. As far as the actual written report, a couple things I just want to highlight real quick. In that report is with respect to the page 2 of that report, agenda item 4. Item 3, we talk about preparing for lead and copper rule requirements. And so I think it's important for the board to be aware that there are requirements, federal requirements coming down that we are required to comply with, obviously, as it relates to the revised lead and copper rule. This is one of these things that's going to take a while for us to work on. And so even though our initial deadline is October 2024, even though that sounds like it's a far away, the process of developing this initial inventory is actually very involved. And so I want to thank Adam for spearheading this effort. But yet I want to recognize the fact that this is one of these things that actually there's going to be a lot of hands involved in collecting this data and coordinating with our customers and going through records and all of that so that we can comply with this. And then as we proceed on, we'll make sure we're giving the board some updates on progress. But at least I want to make sure in case you hear things in the news or see something about this this requirement that you know we're on it. We're working on it, and it's a long process, and so we're trying to start early as part of that process.
So Todd, is that a paper research effort, or are you actually going out and sampling the pipe through some type of a scope or technology, or?
It's a multi-layered process. So yeah, we're going to start with kind of doing the initial records. So we know that the no lead laws went into place in 1986. Adam, I'm looking at it to confirm. And so we know anything built after 1986, that's off the list. That's a no lead check. But yeah, and then we'll have to work through our records and see what we have in our records, and then what the county may have as far as building records to identify maybe what pipe material. And then yeah, then unfortunately it's going to be maybe some of the field verification type process as well.
And so does that inventory require that you do it for your entire line? It's like 200 some miles?
So this will be for the services to homes, so it's for every connection. So 14,000, over 14,000 connections. So I don't know if you want to add.
So
You're eager.
So just from the street to the house?
So
Yes.
yes,
Yeah, not our mains.
not our main.
We know our main, and really, we know that we could make the statement that there's no lead pipe in the system because of design standards, because of historic records. We're not in a position like maybe some other larger municipalities or agencies across the nation, but we still have to do the inventory. So it is only the service line from the main line to the house. It does include both the publicly owned and the privately owned side of the meter. So that's where we are going to be reaching out to the customers, because frankly, we have no information or very little information in-house on the private side, because that's not our jurisdiction.
Right.
But the law now requires that we are responsible to collect that data.
Oh my
Okay, you
goodness.
can come up to my house because we're going to replace our water lines, and you can do that part, and then I don't have to.
No, you just
I
have
will be looking to you for information on what you have in the ground.
I'll bring you a piece.
All right.
Wow.
A picture-
Will that work?
A picture speaks 1,000 words. No.
So help me out, Adam, is the pipe isn't lead. Lead is part of the material that the pipe's made out of?
No, the rule does speak specifically to pipes made of lead,
The whole pipe is made out of?
but there's some fine print. And so for whatever reason, the connection points, so imagine I wish I had a graphic in here, that the line that's running from, say, the meter to the house, all of that pipe, there are places in the country where that is lead, and even from the meter back to the public main is lead. The connection points, we call it the pigtail or the gooseneck, wherever there's a connection from the service line, say, to the main, or from the meter where our jurisdiction happens to stop to the private side. Those can be lead, and yet not be considered a lead service under this
Wow.
revision. Yeah.
Wow.
Don't ask me why. I did not write the law. But we still would have to note those. In fact, lead goosenecks, we again don't expect to find any. We have historically found maybe 2 in the last 30, 40 years.
as we've gone out, say, in like a service replacement project or something. But yeah, there's a lot of fine print. There's some elements that are challenging, but the nice thing, as Todd mentioned, is that the records component is our first stop. So we're going to filter by the lead band, the Oregon lead band year. We're going to filter by size, and then we can look at our standards. We can look at codes, plumbing codes, whether it's UPC or others, to help us filter further. That then would help us reduce how much we actually have to go out and physically verify.
Adam, you talked about looking at historic plumbing codes?
Correct.
Okay.
So,
So it has nothing to do with, is there lead in the water? It has more to do with, is there lead between the main and your house?
It would all be based on that same premise, I think, that lead in the water is from the plumbing, right? I mean, maybe some places in the country lead, and I'm not a water quality expert, but.
But if you're not testing the water, like when you purchase water,
Mhm.
so you're making the assumption that the purchased water that you have is lead-free, correct?
our water doesn't have lead.
Yeah,
Your water doesn't, but you buy some from other
Well,
utilities.
yeah, so water can be an aggressive, so it can extract lead. I should probably
Especially when it's.
defer to Rob to have him correct me more.
I notice he hides back there in the
Well,
corner.
Yeah, so we don't,
Yeah, there's no lead detected in South Fork Water Board water. That's actually.
Yeah.
Or in our water. It's from essentially home plumbing.
Okay, so it is
Or house
tested.
heat,
Oh,
Yeah, okay.
that's,
Regularly, yes.
Okay.
thank you, Adam, appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, item 4, just wanted you to be aware that we did start up our blood drive again, so appreciate Ted Abora for getting us going again on that after a couple year hiatus. So I had a chance to collect some blood in this boardroom in a good way, so that's good. Also, just some general intergovernmental activities. I wanted you to be aware of the Clackamas River water providers. You have their latest quarterly newsletter in the back of this report. So I encourage you to look through that. A lot of good information. One thing I will also let you know is that we had a chance at the last meeting, given the fact that, gosh, there's actually a lot of new faces on the CRWP board. And so we had a chance to kind of spend some time talking about water rights in the Clackamas Basin and water management and conservation plans. And so it was nice that ours was recently updated. I had some charts to share, and Wade was able, from Sunrise, was able to give a historian view of kind of that whole water right process. So. Then moving on, Regional Water Providers Consortium. I think just one thing I just want to bring to your attention is the Regional Water Providers Consortium partners with Portland State University's Population Research Center. And so we do an annual update on population in the different water providers. And so we get that data every year. So we grew by a whopping, 595 people from 2020 to 2021. The one nice thing is this also was adjusted so that it reflected the new census data information that was collected. So that's pretty reliable information working off the census. Next is wanted to also share with you that the Riverside Park and the river is getting a lot of love. Not only is I want you to be aware of the down the river cleanup event, but also that Solve and Water Environment Services is going to be holding a little cleanup at Riverside Park, and so we'll try to have a few staff down there as well. Managers will be down there to help out, but they'll bring a small group in to pick up trash, and like they do in a variety of other areas as well. So you're welcome to participate in that event, and they're advertising it through all of their different means as well. So next item, just wanted to report as far as the fact that we have received some additional money as it relates to the FEMA COVID reimbursements. And so that's nice to be able to report some progress on. Then in looking ahead, the final thing in your report, just want to kind of reaffirm some of the meeting dates. So we will not have a work session in August. So we pulled that from the calendar, and your September board meeting, just want to make sure you're aware it's the typical second Thursday, but that happens to be early in September. So it's that September 8th at 6 p.m. And then also remind those of you who are attending the SBAO Summer Conference. It's held on September 15th. If you're looking to carpool, I'm going to be going down there, staying for the whole thing. So if you need a ride or anything, give me a holler. Otherwise, feel free to make the arrangements, and you can be reimbursed for your mileage associated with that. And then
It's in Eugene,
yeah, or no, in Salem.
Salem.
Yeah, Salem Convention Center. So, and you're responsible for signing yourselves up if you haven't already. And if you need any assistance, Karen can provide you that assistance. And then one thing, I know this is looking way out, but we want to note that the regular February 2023 board meeting actually conflicts with the annual SBAO conference. That conference will be in Sun River. And so we've asked that meeting date be moved to February 16th. And so we'll note that change and moving forward. And then one thing not in this list, but I just want to state the dates. You'll get information later on this month, is the Clackamas River Water Providers. It's going to have its annual watershed tour. It's back. I haven't done that for a couple of years. This year it's going to be an on the river tour. And so space will be limited, but we'll have like 7 or 8 rafts that will go down the river, and you can stop at different projects and intakes and so on. One of the places we will be stopping is at Riverside Park for lunch. I'll present a little bit of information as it relates to CRW and what we do in the treatment plants there. And again, watch for information later this month. It will be limited as far as the numbers, so you'll want to sign up fast and let us know if you're planning to attend. Some things that are not in the packets tonight that I want to bring to your attention is I previously sent out some information about the Metro Policy Advisory Committee selection process, where special districts in Clackamas County have been asked to come together and select a representative to serve on that committee. So SBAO will be facilitating that selection process. You can learn more about that committee. I think I sent out the information. It's a group that special district has 1 representative for each county in Multnomah, Washington, and Clackamas, and then the different cities are represented on that group as well. And so obviously we need a representative for Clackamas County. All different types of districts are allowed to participate in that process. And so I think last time it was a fire district representative that represented Clackamas County. So that meeting is September 27th at 3 p.m. and CRW will be the representative at that meeting to make that vote. And I think Commissioner French has already indicated that she can make it, and has also, I guess, submitted some information too.
Yeah, I put in an application.
Okay. Just real quick, some staffing items to update the board on since our last meeting is we didn't get to do it last time, but we wanted to welcome Christina Day, our senior finance and accounting specialist.
Oh, geez.
Chris, yeah. So, believe me, Jason's very.
That's why he looks so happy tonight.
So Christina comes with a lot of extensive experience in public finance management and operations. Actually, she brings with her a bunch of valuable public sector experience from Clackamas Fire, from Clean Water Services, from Portland Community College. So great to have her on board and helping us out. And then still working on the water resource manager position. Very, very, very thankful that Rob has continuing to help us out, even though he's officially retired.
We're gonna clone him.
So
Rehire them.
I'm
We can't afford him. His wife would kill us.
so just very appreciative of that while we kind of work through this process of still trying to fill that position. We're also continuing to advertise just for some additional help with respect to the distribution crew, both as a needing waterworks mechanic position that we're interviewing for, and then I know summer's almost over, but still looking for someone to kind of help out with some on a temporary basis as well. And stay tuned, we'll have more postings in the future, so. I don't know if we got anybody from that, from you were saying.
I'll check back in with them.
Okay.
But when you say temporary basis, you're referring to internships.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
That's pretty late.
And then also moving on from staffing items, I just want to point out the board, you received a copy of the decision from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals affirming the dismissal of Ms. Holloway's remaining federal claims. And so hoping that closes a chapter of that process there. And I believe, so one thing I wanted to throw out that I forgot to mention is kind of have an idea that to kind of create an opportunity for maybe a meet and greet or some interaction for the staff and the board. And so one of the ideas that actually Karen came up with that I think might be kind of fun, low key, is if you were available to arrive early to your September meeting, and maybe we have some like ice cream social type of thing. Maybe put the commissioners to work scooping ice cream and putting on sprinkles and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I don't
and give
work.
you-
That could work.
They wouldn't let me do a kegger, so we had to do it.
Yes.
I
Maybe
think we
that
got
guy.
along a lot better with the kegger.
Better
Yeah,
job.
so anyway, if that's something that you would be willing to come early, like 3:30 or 4, realize that makes for a little longer evening for you, but since we'll have the board meeting that night, but might be a fun way just to have provide an opportunity for those staff that want to come up. And it's always nice to enjoy some ice cream and have a chance to mingle in a non-meeting environment. So.
We, past years, I will say, you know, there hasn't been a lot of positive repertoire between board and staff. And trying to fix that little problem, and I kept thinking, you know, it'd be nice because we're ratepayers, we're people, you know, I think it would be nice if they got to know us, you know, as people without, you know, not a staff meeting or not, you know, anything like that, so. Bob said he'd do sprinkles.
Yeah, with all the commissioners present, would we run afoul of any public meeting laws?
No,
Bob?
Bob,
Man,
As long as you do not deliberate toward any decision that the board is going to be making. Keep it social.
we're not gonna be doing it, we're just.
Keep it social.
Scooping ice cream.
We can do that.
Although I do have on your management report, Todd, number 8, I'd like to know what, on the very last sentence, our agreement with PGE is to stay on the Clackamas plan for 5 years?
Oh, the payment plan, huh?
Just saying, my name in this, you know, too, that's.
I bet you're on the grammar police too.
You know, I can't help it, I get library books and see errors, and I circle them in pencil. I used to have a librarian at the Oregon City Library, I put Post-its in. And then when I turn my books in, you know, then the next time she go, I see you returned your books. You know, because I have all these little Post-its.
So that concludes my report for tonight.
Very good.
So,
I put little pencil marks by typos I see.
Yes.
Yeah. So during Jason's presentation, you did the capital project report. And I had made a comment to Adam about the status. We hadn't gotten to Todd's management report, and the information I'm looking for is here.
Oh,
Okay.
So there doesn't need to be any adjustments to this report. It keeps it nice and crisp. and the narrative is always associated there, so. I do have one question that now that I look at it on your report. So how do I interpret project number 5253? It's a carryover project with the total budget of $97,000. And to date, 46,974 was spent with 50,026 remaining, but the project's complete. So is that is the carryover disguising that a little bit? Or did we actually come in about half price?
No, carryover.
The carryover.
Yeah,
So
so
the
we're,
other
we're trying to
portion-
time how much we're gonna spend one budget period versus the other budget.
So the other $50,000 or so was spent in the previous biennium?
No, that project actually did come in total.
Yeah.
Oh, did, that
Overall,
much?
it was I want to say about an $800,000 project. So that carryover was a very small amount, but because the
Oh.
project didn't complete in the prior fiscal year.
So it's not 50 out of 97, it's 50 out of 800.
Correct.
So only 97 carried forward.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
All right, at this time, there's no public, any public comment? Have we picked anybody up, Karen? No, thank God. Okay, last is commissioner reports and reimbursements. I don't think there was an OCCWC meeting. We got the last
No.
report for you yet. Okay,
I do have a small item.
yes, sir.
Recently, North Clackamas Watershed Commission, which is not in our watershed, but part of the basin here, and it includes the watershed between Clackamas River and Johnson Creek, received a grant to study removal of Kellogg Dam.
Mhm.
And there was a very healthy grant, and it's very much moving that project along. The reason I mention that is Neil Sherman, who is a director of North Clackamas Watershed Commission, is housed in our church. He has an office. He's rented space for about the last 5 years in the old pastor's office, and he had one assistant, and he's added 2 people to his staff, and he's taken over another 500 square feet of office space in the upstairs of Milwaukee Presbyterian Church, which borders right on Kellogg Lake. We're the second largest landowner on Kellogg Lake, greatly affected by that. I think anybody in the area that knows that is interested in the details as that progresses as slowly as it has, but it has gained some momentum.
Good to know. Anything else? Okay, then I guess that's on me. Went to the C4, which is Clackamas County Coordinating Committee, which is always transportation and housing, but it is consistently, the transportation is the tollman. And all their reports and yays and nays, and they still don't know how they're gonna fund it. And nobody has any answers, when they're asked questions as well. I'm jotting this down and I'll check with my supervisor. And, I mean, at one point in the paper was a comment made that they were talking about an $85 a month flat fee, but then nobody seems to know where that came from, so. Anyway, that's basically all their stuff. Sunrise Water Authority, they had individuals there for the development concept for their Armstrong Circle vacant parcel, which was an interesting chit chat as to, are they gonna build a wall, what they're gonna do, are they gonna sell it? And they still haven't, decided. They've got they've got like three other parcels, I think it is, other than what you're on, yeah. They have to decide about. They did elect new officers. Yes, Chris. Chris is still their chair. They did change the vice chair to Gary Barth, and the secretary is Kevin Bailey. And they had a really interesting discussion dealing with the water meter supply chain issues. As we have experienced supplies seem to be a problem, you know, I mean, to the point of, do they go to other entities, hey, got any spares you wanna sell us, you know, yeah, for like $5. But, no, but it's something that I think that we need to keep in the top of our heads too, and looking forward, just in case, you know, to make sure that we do have adequate supplies. I questioned our meter supplies and I'm told they're fine, we're good. Adam's smiling, giving a thumbs up. And Chris was voted in as well, stays our CRW rep. Oak Lodge, they will become, well, they already are no, it's Oak Lodge. How do they put it? Oak Lodge Water Authority now, not services, Water Authority. Oak Lodge Water Authority, I think it is.
Are they
I can't
there yet?
remember. Well, depends who you talk to. They did, looked at their population forecast for their wastewater master plan. And they're looking at probably about a little over 1,300 development units, just as a guess. They, all the commissioners, bless you, you're allergic to us? One of their commissioners did bring up the fact that with this over 1,300 potential new customers in their area, we'd be looking to the Willamette for drinking water. And I don't see how that's gonna happen for a long time, but that was kind of interesting. But anyhow, let's see. That's about it. Right there. So that's where we was.
So did we miss this,
What's that?
the surplus?
That was part of the consent agenda.
That was part of the consent agenda.
So there's no specific motion that's needed?
It was, yeah, the minutes and the consent, yeah. the consent
And
agenda.
those items they put up, God knows where they put them, if they're sold or, you know, donated and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, if you have questions, I'm sure Adam can tell you where they all go. Who, you're pointing to Karen? Oh, okay. All right, just to note, I talked with Todd and I talked to all of the commissioners, but for the record, North Clackamas County Water Commission, the NCCWC rep will be Rusty. Oak Lodge and Sunrise and C4 are mine. Tessa will take over the Southport Water Board. Tessa and Bob are going to do the Clackamas Fire CRW Interagency Committee, they ever meet. And Regional Water Providers Consortium is Naomi, and she is also serving on their executive board, and everything else is Todd. So, in alongside with his other duties and being SDAO president and everything else in his spare time. So, is there anything else, gentlemen? Yes, no?
No.
You getting ready to, okay.
No. Do I have to,
No,
I have to make a motion?
No, it is about 6:58 and I'm adjourning.
Good job, Sharon.